Well, sorry about yesterday, folks. Had some audio issues, but we're back and better than ever live from Arlington for the College Baseball Showdown this weekend.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday as you have finally made it to the final part of the week, heading right into the weekend. And again, if you're noticing the audio is a little bit different, it's because I'm here in Arlington getting ready for the College Baseball Showdown with Arkansas and playing some really good teams out of the Big 12, which we'll talk about later in the show as well. But yesterday I had some audio issues where I recorded an entire podcast. And then once it was done, I looked back and it was a garbled mess. Don't really know why that happened, but due to time constraints, I had to just call it a day. But we're back now. We're going to do the podcast now. And we should be back rolling and getting it done in the best way possible. So I know we're going to talk baseball because that's something that people are excited about. I'm excited about it, being down here and being able to watch some of these games and see this Razorback baseball team for the first time as far as in some real matchups against some really good teams. But I have to go back to the Texas A&M game on the road and basketball, because this one was one that's so many of you had so many reactions and emotions from, which I did as well. And it was one to where I felt like yesterday's podcast was probably the best podcast I've ever done. But of course, no one's going to be able to hear it. At least it's going to what I'm going to tell myself inside my head. But overall, that A&M game, it's incredible to me how this team is just so bad at finishing games. They can't close games. And I know that the old adage is that you are what your record says you are, which Arkansas now is 6-7 in conference play. They have 5 games left in the regular season, 3 of those games being at home. And Florida is going to be the next one, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a second too. But the one thing that I felt like for Arkansas down the stretch of the final 6 games, at least after the Mississippi State loss, that was a tough one. That was bad. That was frustrating. And we talked about it, but I was like, okay, well, winning on the road against Tennessee and Alabama probably is not going to be something that's actually going to happen. We're just looking at it realistically. But winning on the road against Texas A&M is your best bet. It's your best shot. A&M's a good basketball team. I mean, they're second in the SEC for a reason. They've had some really good wins this year. But when you faced off against them the first time around in Bud Walton Arena, I even said on the podcast a couple of days ago, I liked the matchup. I just liked the way that these two teams were able to have some similarities, but also Arkansas seemed to have, with at least their strengths and what they've been able to do so far this year, felt like they were going to be a team that could go into College Station and beat A&M for the first time at home this year, or at least in the conference play at home. I thought that was going to be the case. And for 31 minutes of this game, it kind of was the case, as Arkansas was able to play about as good as you could ask, especially in the first half. They were completely and totally shutting down Texas A&M offensively. And we know that Arkansas is a team that hasn't been great on offense really all year long. We understand that. That's what the team is. But you felt like that maybe, just maybe, playing good enough defense would be able to produce some really good offense, and Arkansas would be able to get out of there with a win. But in the first half, it was all Arkansas. If you think about the way that Arkansas was able to do defense overall, for instance, you have a situation where A&M could not find any sort of flow offensively. I think a lot of credit of that goes to Arkansas in the way that they were able to shut them down a little bit. Because if you're just looking at the numbers, as far as the box score goes, Texas A&M shot 8 of 27 in the first half from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, 6 of 8 from the free throw line. They just were not being the team that Buzz Williams expected them to be, that they had shown a lot of times this year, especially at home. They had 6 turnovers and 10 fouls also in the first half. Like, they just seemed all out of sorts. And Arkansas was pretty much in full control of the game too in the first half, because you had Devo Davis, for instance, had 11 points in the first half. He played nearly the entire first half, but he had 11 points of 4 or 5 shooting, 3 of 4 from three-point land. Devo looked to be bouncing back in a major way after having that poor performance against Mississippi State. But not only did he play well offensively, but even Anthony Black, he had 5 assists in the first half. 4 points on 1 of 4 shooting, but he did hit a 3, but had 5 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. He was doing a really great job. Think about Ricky Council. He only had 4 points too. He only made 2 baskets, 2 of 6, but 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Had a nice little game, nice little first half there. And Jordan Walsh even comes in, which we know Jordan Walsh has been really hit or miss, but he has 5 points, 2 of 3 from the field, has only 1 turnover, but also throws in a rebound there too. Made a free throw. Arkansas shoots 52% as a team, 66% from three-point land, and 3 of 6, which is 50% from the free throw line. But that was exactly the type of first half that you needed to have on the road against a team like Texas A&M. But the one thing that really just got me was when Texas A&M was able to make that buzzer-beating 3 to end the first half. When that happened, it was kind of this feeling of like, ooh, that's the type of thing that's going to have A&M with some momentum heading into the second half and maybe being able to bounce back and make it a game in the second half. Arkansas still led 33-24. If he doesn't make that 3, Arkansas has a 12-point lead heading into halftime, but instead it's a 9-point lead. Still sizable, still great, still all of that. But as we know, for this team, a lot of times it's been a tale of 2 halves, and it was definitely the second half in this one that ended up failing Arkansas. So A&M comes out swinging, really gets some great momentum going, is able to cut it slowly but surely to a 1-point game, and the frustrations are already kind of setting in. You can tell that this is something to where Arkansas, if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to be able to have a type of finish in this game that they had at least playing in the first half. So A&M hits 4 of 5 3-pointers in the second half. They go 11 of 27 from the field, 12 of 14 from the free throw line. So you're talking about offensively just completely and totally changing the narrative and them and being able to bounce back and really get to the free throw line effectively as well. They only had 3 turnovers, too, in the second half compared to their 6 turnovers in the first half. And then Arkansas goes 9 of 25 from the field. That's 36%. 1 of 10 from three-point land. 1 of 10 from three-point land. That's 10%, by the way, in case you need to do math. And then 4 of 8 from the free throw line, which once again was 50%. Just abysmal. It was an abysmal performance in the second half by Arkansas. And what really was the nail in the coffin was Muss always talks about it being a game of runs. And there's usually 3 runs in a game. You got to win 2 out of those 3 runs in order to win the game. And Arkansas in the second half, when it came to the runs that the teams were going on, A&M won both of those in the second half. They were able to have that early first run to cut it to 1 point and then eventually take the lead. And then down the stretch in about the final 7.5 minutes of the game, Arkansas was outscored like 11-3, where the one basket that Arkansas had was one late, and that was all she wrote. It was all she wrote. And now this is, again, I'm doing my math correctly here, of the 7 losses in SEC play for Arkansas this year. This is the 5th loss where Arkansas has actually had more field goals made than their opponent. Arkansas made 22 field goals in this game. A&M made 19. This is the 5th loss this year where Arkansas has made more field goals than their opponent. That type of thing is just mind-blowing. And a lot of times it comes down to, well, the other team made some more threes, or the other team made more free throws, or Arkansas just turned the ball over ad nauseum, whatever it is. There's reasons behind it, but this team just can't close. Every single game that Arkansas has played on the road in SEC play, minus the Auburn game, Arkansas's had a pretty sizable lead in the second half. Against Vanderbilt, they led by 10 points, lost that lead. Against a team like Missouri, they had a lead, lost it. Texas A&M, same thing, lost the lead. Mississippi State lost the lead. I guess they didn't really lead in that one. But there's always been these games where Arkansas has done good enough and has played well enough to be in control, to be able to have a lead, and they just cannot finish. Now, people start bringing up, well, what's the reasons behind this? Why is that the case? Is it simply because of legs getting tired, because you have Anthony Black, Devo Davis, Ricky Council all three of those guys are averaging more minutes per game than any player did last year or the year before on a Razorback team. All three of those guys are averaging 37 plus minutes a game. Is it their legs getting taken out? Because, Devo Davis missed 3 straight free throws in a row, which you cannot have and cannot do if you're supposed to be a veteran of this team on the road when the game's on the line. You just can't have that happen. So, is it the legs? Are they getting tired? I think that, I started to believe that, there wasn't really a whole lot to that as far as, choking these games away. But it does seem like time after time and game after game, maybe that is playing a factor. Maybe you have guys that are just getting tired down the stretch. But at the same time, I understand why he has to do that, because everyone's like, oh, we'll just throw in Joseph Pinion. Well, okay, that's not going to work. Like, as good as Joseph Pinion may be at shooting threes, he's not as good of a defender as Devo Davis or Ricky Counts or anything like that. And Muss is always going to put more preference and more emphasis on defense than anything. So you can't say that and you can't do that. And I even saw people say, oh, where's Barry Dunning? Where's he at? Okay, Barry Dunning hasn't played. I don't even think he's played a minute in SEC games. And you're just going to throw him in? See what you can do. Like, no, you're not going to do that. But the biggest question was about Nick Smith. And he played less than 4 minutes in this game. He played 17 minutes against Mississippi State. And everything was after the game where Muss was talking about, want to get them more integrated, and it's a challenge, and they just got to get out there and get the feel for everything. Like, that's got to be something that they do and take care of, whatever it may be. But then he just plays 4 minutes, not even 4 minutes. And suddenly it's like, okay, so what? Are you trying to integrate him? Was he hurt? Was it something that he just wasn't playing well? Because I think he did have 2 turnovers in this game. Like, what is it? It's the most mysterious, peculiar type of team I think Arkansas has had, where they are the best team on paper when it comes to talent this year that Muss has had overall. But yet there's a chance that they could finish with the worst SEC record that Arkansas's had under Muss. I don't think they'll get to that point. 7-11. Like, I think they'll win at least one more game. 2, pretty sure. 3, I even feel good about, but still. But they'll be flirting with it at least. And it just doesn't make much sense. And you have Nick Smith back, so why is he not playing? Why is he not getting more involved? What is the holdup here? It's a mystery. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating once again. This is a very frustrating team to watch. I think everybody, myself included, have just been waiting for when the next page is going to turn, and they're going to turn on at the right time. And they haven't done it. They just haven't done it. They don't have a finisher. They don't have an assassin at the end of the game to just take over and get it done. Last year, you had J.D. Note. J.D. Note, sometimes would shoot the ball 38 times in a game. But you know what? I was okay with it because the dude had a mentality of fearing nobody and going and getting his shot. Before that, you had Moses Moody, which was really good too. We know how good he was at that. On also J.D. Note being on that team. And the year before that, you had Mason Jones. Like, every year you've had those guys. It's been that dude that's like, all right, go out and get it. And you don't have that this year. The inconsistency from Ricky Council and Devo Davis has been, it's hard to trust them in those moments. Anthony Black, to me, Anthony Black has been the best player on this team by far. And I think every single game he plays incredible, but he's not the type of guy, and he has in his type of role, he can go out and get 25, but his mentality is more of just doing it all. Like, he had 8 assists in this game. That's incredible. If your point guard has 8 assists and 4 turnovers, assist to turnover ratio is 2, you should win those games. So they just don't have that guy. They have Florida upcoming next at home. They have to win that one. They better win that one, because not only it's a home game, but Colin Castleton, the dude that caused so many problems for Arkansas last year, has been so good for Florida. He's out with a broken hand. And I don't think it's putting it too mildly. I've been very optimistic about this team. In fact, some people say I'm a Debbie Downer the other day, which was the funniest thing I've ever heard, because I'm like, man, I'm usually the glass half full guy. But looking at it seriously, though, if Arkansas does not beat Florida tomorrow in Bud Walton Arena, the NCAA tournament may be over. It may not happen. It may not happen. You'll have Georgia at home, which, again, you should win, but Kentucky, they may be in a desperation mode where they have to win that game to get to the NCAA tournament. So it might be a different mentality that you see. Bama and Tennessee on the road. Good luck with that. But it's a very frustrating team, and it gives me a little bit of the similarities of football, where it's like we're going to look back on this year, regardless of what happens. Which if you get to the NCAA tournament, all bets are off. Maybe they can turn it on. Maybe they get good matchups. Maybe they find a way. Maybe, who knows? But I just have this eerie feeling that this is going to be a year where we're going to look back upon it and be like, man, Arkansas finished 9-9 in SEC play, that they should have actually gone 13-5 or 14-4. But because they couldn't close, because they couldn't hold on to leads, it ended up costing them dramatically and tremendously at the end of the regular season. It's frustrating. I get it. Everyone's frustrated. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. The whole state of Arkansas is frustrated. But still got games. Still got to figure this out. This season's not over until it's over. But, you're still in the NCAA tournament as of right now, according to Joe Lunardi. Still got it going on. But you got to be able to do – you got to be better. Just got to be better, and you got to close these games. And we'll figure out what's going on with Nick Smith, hopefully one day. Folks, the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sports app, and it's safe, sound, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. All of those fun things you can bet on through the FanDuel app. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at winning a bigger payout with the same game parlay for all different games across all sports, but particularly the NBA. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book betting partner of the NBA.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I mentioned that I am here in Arlington for the College Baseball Showdown. Arkansas is going to be going at Texas in the first game of the regular season for this Razorback baseball team. And I can't wait. I love baseball season. And I know if you've ever listened to me, if you follow me on social media, if you know me personally, you know I am not a baseball guy. I still don't really know what striking out the side means. I just don't. But I really enjoy going to the games. I enjoy covering Razorback baseball, and I enjoy watching some of these players and some of these guys coming back and being able to have a really good start to the season. This is one of the best events you'll ever see when it comes to college baseball in the early season deals of great opponents and playing here at Globe Life Field, which, is pretty much brand new. One of the nicer venues that you'll see in Major League Baseball. They had the World Series here just a few years ago. Some people refer to when the Dodgers won as the Mickey Mouse World Series, but still a World Series nonetheless. So it's a really nice venue, and it's going to be on Flow Sports, by the way, for those of you who are going to try to watch the games. We all love Flow Sports. They're great, right? So Arkansas is going to take on Texas today. It's at 7 o'clock, but it's not actually going to be at 7 o'clock because they got two games in front of Arkansas. The first game starts at 11, and then the next game supposedly is going to start at 3. But I just don't see any way, shape, or form that those – unless you're just having like 1-0 games that end up being pitchers' duels, then, okay, maybe there's a chance of it. But odds are it's going to be a late night and late game for everybody involved. So you can watch it on Flow Sports, but you can also, of course, listen to it on 103.7 The Buzz if you're in the listening area. But Arkansas is got a lot of expectations this year. They're sitting there at number 8 in the country, and it just kind of depends on where you look at your polls and all of that. D1 baseball is usually always the one I've used. I feel like they do a great job, and they're one of the most accurate. But they have Arkansas at number 8. If you look at some other polls, Perfect Game has Arkansas at number 4. So maybe some of you who like to say, oh, well, I like to look at whichever poll has Arkansas the highest, that may be the one is the Perfect Game. But USA Today coaches has them at 6, Collegiate Baseball at number 7, Baseball America at number 11. Either way, Arkansas essentially is a bona fide top 10 team preseason. And they have a lot of new faces there in the lineup. I mean, pretty much Stovall, as well as Slavens, Kendall Diggs. Those are really the only guys that are going to be there in the lineup that you're probably familiar with from last year. Beaufrin's going to be in there too, so you'll at least have seen him a little bit. But you got a lot of guys that have transferred in, a lot of guys that we've been hearing some big things about. But it's going to be interesting to see. And we know it was how sucky it was that Arkansas lost Jackson Wiggins, but Hagen Smith is going to be the guy going in this first game. We know how good he was last year, and I think that he's the right guy for the job there too. So I think he'll do really well. And you're thinking about him, and then Will McIntyre, Big Mac, he'll be going in the second game, and looks like Arkansas also is going to be going with the junior Hunter Holland in Game 3 against Oklahoma State. So kind of looking like what their lineup's going to do. You have dudes that are going to be coming out of the bullpen that should be fun to see once again, like Brady Tigert, who was so good last year, especially early. He's going to have another year of experience. He's going to be in a closer type of role. You also have Zach Morris. He's going to be back there too. So again, it's a mixture of new faces and some old faces, but there's no doubt that this Razorback baseball team is going to be one that's going to be competing for another College World Series spot and be one of the teams that are competing for an SEC regular season championship as well. I think that with Arkansas this year, people are asking me my predictions or my expectations for what Razorback baseball needs to be or what they need to bring. Here's my thing. I don't think in baseball it's just as simple as saying, okay, well, this is a College World Series team. Because if you look at what Arkansas has done when going to the College World Series, very few times, they've gone to a bunch of College World Series, but very few times have they just been all bona fide preseason. Yeah, this team's for sure making the College World Series. It's like they've been highly ranked or maybe looked at in a certain way, but it doesn't always equate to them getting to the College World Series. In fact, I feel like the times that Arkansas has been like preseason ranked number 1, or a lot of cases where when Arkansas did not make it to the College World Series, in fact, had a pretty disappointing year. But when the talent on this team, and of course Dave Van Horn, and the pitching depth, even though you lost Wiggins, you still have a lot of guys there. I think it absolutely has the talent and caliber to make it back to the World Series. And I've been talking to some people that know a lot more about Razorback baseball than I do. They've even been saying that as far as the offense goes, it's going to be much better this year. Now, the defense is really where it's going to be interesting because last year you're so good defensively, and not having Jalen Ball's battles at shortstop and Robert Moore, which was just a double play machine, you're not going to have them this year. So who's going to step up? Who's going to do what? That's going to be an ultimate question for people there too. But I think the pitching is going to be improved. I think the hitting is going to be improved. And I think that Arkansas is going to be a team that's going to be in the mix for a College World Series. I would really like it if they just hosted a regional and a super regional. That'd be great. Last year was fun making it back to the World Series, but there's something special whenever you get to play at Baum Walker Stadium in postseason play and get Razorback fans to see that. It's always a lot more fun. So I hope they at least get to that point. But I think Arkansas is going to win the SEC. The SEC is stupid loaded this year. LSU has pretty much been dubbed as God's gift to college baseball by everybody because they got a lot of talent on their team. Tennessee is going to be really good too. You're going to have teams like Vanderbilt, which Arkansas is going to play. In fact, Arkansas plays all 3 of those teams this year. 2 of those on the road. The only really big home series that you have is against Tennessee, as far as your toughest games, because you have to go to Mississippi State, to Ole Miss, to LSU, to Vanderbilt, to Texas A&M. So that one's gonna be a tough one. But A&M's supposed to be good there too. We'll see. So it's really tough to say one way or the other how good this team's gonna be as far as getting to postseason. But I mean, again, if they made it to the College World Series, would I be surprised? Not at all. None whatsoever. If they won it all, would I be surprised? Yeah, I would, because it's so hard to win a championship. But it's not impossible. Like if you told me this team was finally the team that won it for Dave Van Horn, won a College World Series title, then I wouldn't be like shocked or blown away. I think the talent is there. I think the pitching's there. I think the offense is there. We'll see the defense does. But it's once again going to be a really fun and great season for Razorback baseball. And it all starts tonight in Arlington at Globe Life Field. Appreciate everybody listening in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel next Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you then.